Thanks for joining us on Chicago Tonight. I'm Paris Schutz. Here's what we're looking at. The jury begins deliberating in the landmark corruption trial of former Alderman Ed Burke. As temperatures drop, the fight over fossil fuels is heating up. Why a massive project to upgrade Chicago's aging natural gas pipelines is partially on hold. United and American Airlines are calling for the O'Hare expansion project to be scaled back or grounded. And remembering Richard Hunt, the groundbreaking Chicago artist who created monuments in metal. Now to some of today's top stories. Detectives are investigating the death of a 5-year-old boy who was living in a Pilsen migrant shelter. Jean Carlos Martinez Rivero fell ill at the shelter and died after being rushed to Comer Children's Hospital at 2:45 p.m. Sunday. Mayor Brandon Johnson issued a statement today saying the city is still gathering information on this tragedy and said, quote, "My heart and my prayers go out to the Martinez family. The city will continue to provide resources and support to them during this difficult time." The fate of former Alderman Ed Burke is now officially in the hands of federal jurors. The jury began deliberating this afternoon after nearly 4 hours and 350 pages of jury instructions. Burke faces 14 charges, including racketeering and attempted extortion in connection to alleged schemes surrounding the renovation of the Old Main Post Office, the Southwest Side Burger King, the Field Museum, and a Binny sign. Burke's former aide Peter Andrews and real estate developer Charles Quay are also charged in this case. If the jury doesn't come to a verdict by the end of the week, they'll have the next week off for the holidays and then come back to deliberate after the new year. Adjunct faculty at Columbia College announced they've reached a tentative agreement with the school, ending a 49-day strike. The union, representing about 600 faculty members, says it initiated the strike because Columbia cut 50 class sections for the fall semester and more than 300 for the upcoming spring semester. The college responded that the reductions were necessary, but that it was offering pay raises for adjunct faculty. Neither side disclosed the details of this current tentative agreement, and there are more details on this story on our website. Up next, the status of a gas pipeline replacement project. That's right after this.
Chicago Tonight is made possible in part by Alexandra and John Nichols, the Jim and Kay Mabey family, the Polk Brothers Foundation, and the support of these donors.
As temperatures drop in Chicago, the fight over your gas and power rates are heating up. The newly appointed Illinois Commerce Commission threw cold water on plans for ComEd and Peoples Gas to raise consumers' rates. It prompted cheers from consumer groups and probably most of the Chicago consumers out there, but howls from power companies saying they're relying on the higher rates to upgrade aging infrastructure and provide clean energy. And here with their analysis are Sarah Moskowitz, Executive Director of the Citizens Utility Board, and Mark Poulos, Executive Director of the Illinois Foundation for Fair Contracting. We also invited Peoples Gas, but they declined our invitation. We thank you both for being here. So to remind viewers, when rates go up or when Peoples Gas or ComEd, they ask for high rates, they go before the Illinois Commerce Commission, a board appointed for the governor. In the past, the Commerce Commissioner has usually rubber stamped these rate hike asks. This time with Peoples Gas, they cut it by 25%. So Peoples was looking for $400 million in hikes. It's going to be cut to around $300 million. Sarah, what was their rationale for cutting those hikes down, which again is going to affect every consumer in Chicago's bill?
Well, on the Peoples Gas side, the commission said loud and clear that the utility had not done its job in proving that these rate hikes were just and reasonable and prudently arrived at. So they're not putting the kibosh on any kind of emergency or safety maintenance needed on the lines. In fact, the final order says very explicitly that the utility is still required by statute to make those kinds of improvements. What this means is basically just a return to traditional regulation whereby they make those upgrades and then they put that into a future rate case.
And remind us, what will this mean for the average gas consumer's bill?
So Peoples Gas still got a record rate hike. they received a $300 million rate hike. And so the gas company has come back saying, well, first they filed a motion asking the commission if they really meant it. The commission said, yes, we really meant it. Now they're going through the motions of getting ready to gear up for another rate hike request for next year. This is coming off of record profits that the utility has been enjoying for 6 straight years.
All right, so folks will still see higher rates on their bills, but perhaps not as high as it would have been. Mark, your reaction to this decision?
Well, my reaction is, one, I don't think that the ICC Commission has ever rubber stamped anything that the utility has asked for. I think over the last 10 years since we've been doing the accelerated main replacement program, I think Peoples Gas has made filings before the ICC Commission on time, like they're supposed to every single year, where the ICC Commission has to determine prudency. Every time that they've gone through it, they've determined that it was prudent. In fact, in about the 5th year of filing those in the last 10 years, the ICC Commission was getting concerned about the cost of the program was escalating, and so they asked for a third party to do a study, to which they did. And the third party not only said has everything that they've been doing prudent, they said they should be spending more and they should be doing it faster than they were actually doing it.
All right, so this is the main replacement program. So Peoples Gas is going block by block throughout the entire city, replacing infrastructure that's been there in some cases 100 years. They're putting polyethylene piping in there. So does this decision mean they're going to have to stop part of that upgrade?
That's exactly what this means.
They put it on pause pending further review.
What it means is starting January 1st, the ICC Commission has ordered Peoples Gas to stop the accelerated main replacement program, which means there's about $250 million worth of work, 1,000 jobs, about 1.5 million man-hours that were going in this in order to provide safe, reliable heat to the 90% of people in the city of Chicago that rely on natural gas to heat their homes and their buildings. And they've asked them to pause this, which means Doug Scott, who has been, who's the ICC Commissioner Chair, has been on a vengeance in the Midwest and is the decarbonization czar who is now running the Illinois Commerce Commission. The fact of the matter is this isn't about rate hikes. This is about decarbonization.
So you think his agenda here is he wants to move away from this kind of power from natural gas into other kind of energy sources, and that's why he's doing this. But I need to, Sarah, I wanted to get your
This is absolutely
response.
about rate hikes. Peoples Gas customers right now are paying upwards of $50 a month before they ever use a bit of gas. When I travel around the country talking to colleagues from other states, they don't believe that when I tell them that. The city is already in the midst of an affordability crisis. In some zip codes, we see upwards of 50% of customers are behind on their bills. Arrearages total now between $80 and $90 million, which eventually get rate-based, covered by the rest of the customer class. So we have an issue here where people cannot afford to heat their homes. Bills are already too high. They are much higher than other utilities across the state, and people can't afford it now. The utility has been making record profits. They've been breaking their record year after year for profits, and they keep coming back for more and more. They just got a record rate hike, and they want more. And they're kicking and screaming about the fact that they just got a record rate hike, but it's not enough. When is enough enough?
All right, so record rate hike, true record profits, and if so, why can't Peoples fund this main replacement program without the extra $100 million that it's asking for?
What's true is that the ICC Commission is the one that actually sets the profits that the industries get in the state. ComEd, Ameren, Peoples Gas, Nicor, name your utility company.
They set the rates, correct?
The
rates that you can profit on.
They set the rates. So they set the rates. So Peoples Gas, those rates are set by the ICC Commission. And in fact, in the last rate case that they just filed, they actually knocked down what the profit could be for Peoples Gas. So the fact of the matter is that things cost money. And we would advocate, along with CUB and anybody else, that people should have affordable rates for their energy, for their gas, for their electric, and everything else. But what we won't stand for is we won't stand for a Commerce Commission that is out on a vengeance to do away with natural gas before we have a plan to replace it with something else. We're sitting before the ICC Commission on geothermal, for example. We think that's a great idea. We think it's the wave of the future to heat and cool homes and buildings in the city of Chicago. But the fact of the matter is that that is 30 to 60 years out before we are ready to cap the natural gas system and move on to a new system. And by the way, We have spent billions of dollars in this country subsidizing the electrical industry to say, let's do R&D on solar, let's do R&D on windmills, let's look at all these renewable energy sources, but we've not invested in natural gas to determine what's the next best path for natural gas.
All right, so Sarah,
the final orders that issued by the commission call for a future of gas proceeding, at which we'll all sit down and work with the electric utilities to work out the future of this infrastructure, which is expensive, it's unhealthy, it's bad for the environment. We already see people moving off of gas. We at CUB hear from people who are interested in electrifying their homes. What happens if that transition happens in an unmanaged way? What happens is the people who can afford to do so will exit the gas rate base,
so Sarah,
leaving the rest of their customers even less able to pay their bills.
Are you saying that this $11 billion main replacement program perhaps is not warranted if more and more people start moving away from natural gas?
We need to think about, is now the time to be pouring more and more of ratepayer money into a system which may one day soon become obsolete and not in use. Through the main replacement program, the utility has been replacing pieces of their system that did not need to be replaced. We are still paying for some of the stuff that has already been replaced.
Yeah, and Mark, there's been a lot of criticism, including from the Attorney General, that this budget just kind of ballooned and the program's just gotten unruly here.
What I would suggest is that digging around the multiple utilities and working with, I think it's 28 different agencies to do these programs through the city of Chicago is relatively difficult work. And I would say that I think the initial estimates of this particular program, as they continue to get into this, and the city of Chicago over time has requested things like, when you put the main in, can you please replace the four corners and the ADA accessible sidewalks and coordinate with the water department?
Mark, I'm sorry, we got to go. So you're saying that, initial cost estimates, there's a lot of other things that went into this and those costs went up. I have to leave it there. Sarah Moskowitz and Mark Poulos, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And up next, what's causing delays for the expansion at O'Hare? So please stay with us. United and American Airlines want to ground or significantly scale back the massive O'Hare redevelopment designs. The thing is, the airlines signed an agreement to foot much of that bill through increased gate fees, but now they say the project is over budget. Theme tonight in the show, and pandemic-era losses put them at a disadvantage. So will this elaborate Genie Gang designed Terminal 2 ever take flight? And joining us are Joe Sweeterman, professor at DePaul University who specializes in public policy, transportation, and urban planning, and Mark Denzler, president and CEO of the Illinois Manufacturers Association. We also invited United Airlines and American, as well as the Chicago Department of Aviation, but they declined. We do appreciate the two of you being here. So first, Mark, this project was first pegged at $8.7 billion. Surprise, surprise, it's going to cost a lot more than that, now estimated to cost about $12 billion. Tell us where it is right now and why the overruns.
Well, we're heartened that the mayor's office and United American, which are committed to this project, are back at the table negotiating, discussing how we bring forth the modernization of O'Hare Airport, but we do it in a cost-effective manner. As you noted, Paris, when this agreement was signed in 2018, it was about an $8 billion project. About $6 billion of that was going to the terminal remodeling. And today it's about a $12 billion cost when you look at today's dollars. And so we need to make sure that we modernize the airport, because travelers and manufacturers have to move people and product around the world. We need to make sure that we have safe, efficient flights. When travelers are coming through, they want to make sure they can get their connecting flight and get to their next destination and do it in a cost-effective manner.
And O'Hare has to keep pace with some of these airports around the world that have modernized. I mean, I think we have drawings, renderings of these Genie Gang designs, especially that giant Terminal 2. What are the airlines concerned about with respect to this? Because they already signed an agreement.
That's right. To give you a little history, it reminds me looking back at the Mayor Daley days when we had the O'Hare modernization program, extending the runways, improving that. That's done now. So that sort of raised the base of the cost for the airlines, with all that being done. We had the Terminal 5 gates added just this year. That's been a whole new world out there. It's exciting. But the airlines are saying the world's changed, and the need for 2 satellite concourses initially right out of the box, followed by this global terminal, just is too much too fast. So there's furious negotiations happening, whether we can look at different timing, whether there's a way to cut costs, and the sides appear pretty far apart right now.
But are you saying the city is actually sitting back down to the table? I think Rahm Emanuel was quoted, the former mayor who kind of cut this deal, said, hey, hold the airlines to the deal that they made.
Yeah, that's right. I think the airlines see that O'Hare's fallen behind. I mean, I came back from Europe. I can attest to the different ambiance of a European airport versus O'Hare. And so I think everybody knows that the current O'Hare, some terminals dating back to the 60s, just doesn't cut it in today's world. The difficult part is O'Hare is a 2-hub airline. United American funneled a lot of people through O'Hare that aren't originating in Chicago. And they argue that at the rising costs, it'd just be more cost effective to route passengers to other hubs. Now, there's a certain amount of bargaining here. I think
they have some leverage here.
They do have some leverage.
They could take business away from O'Hare. Mark Denzler, what about that? Should the city come back and scale down these plans?
Well, again, the airlines are committed to this, but we have to do it in a cost-competitive fashion, Paris. And when you talk about the enplanement cost, for example, today's O'Hare is about $26 per passenger. We're the 3rd highest in the United States. And if this project were to go through with all the cost overruns, that's going to skyrocket to about $54, which is nearly double the 2nd highest LaGuardia and Newark. And you look at some of the competition, Atlanta is $1.04. Charlotte is about $4. Dallas is $12. Phoenix is $5. Minneapolis is $8.40. And so as we price ourselves out of the market, and as he said, about 50% of the passengers that come through O'Hare are connecting, and we have the dual hub with American and United. And so we have to make sure those costs don't get too out of control, because what's going to happen are the airlines are going to route people elsewhere, because when Mark Denzler makes his plane reservation and I have to connect, if it's cheaper to go through Detroit or Denver or Minneapolis or Charlotte, and it's $50 or $100 cheaper, passengers are going to do that. And what that means is fewer passengers coming through O'Hare. It means less tax revenue. So we have to be very careful. But again, I would applaud the mayor's office is sitting back down with United and American, who don't want to pull out. They're committed to this project, but the agreement that they signed in 2018 also had a cost in it. And so as that cost is 25% higher, it behooves all sides to sit back down and say, hey, what can we do? And again, it's great to have this modern terminal, but most passengers want to be able to connect their flights and get to their destination and do it cheaply.
Then there was also COVID, obviously, that threw a wrench into things. I should read a statement from the Chicago Department of Aviation. They say they remain committed to the continued growth and development of O'Hare International Airport through O'Hare 21. Enabling work for the next phase of this vital infrastructure project began in March. The CDA remains engaged in consultation with airline, agency, and business partners on a complex phasing and implementation associated with the development of this magnitude. Joe Schwieterman, what might a scaled back redevelopment look like, or might they just lengthen the time, because they're supposed to finish this by 2028?
You know, really applaud the city. They finished Terminal 5 on time. The runway expansions were done really very well. So there's a lot of, you might say, political capital that the city's built up that they can deliver what they promised. I think here, one of the difficult things is, can you keep the airport running if we take Terminal 2 out of commission to build this global terminal without having to use satellites to put planes to in the meantime? And so if you don't build both satellites, well, we have chaos out there trying to build this new terminal, global terminal, without somewhere to put the planes. And that's going to be some complex analysis, and that could be the key to maybe solving this if we maybe move that satellite terminal connection back and focus on Terminal 2.
One of the other things they were saying, we only have 30 seconds left, maybe they need to scale down these really nice, dramatic designs by Genie Gang, like looking like a rainforest in there. I mean, a lot of airports around the world are very, very well designed.
That's right. There's a ton of room for negotiation here, and the city really has just a spectacular vision for Terminal 2, and the airlines love that. I mean, it's really a mess now. International flights pulling into that Terminal 5, telling people to take that
jump
people
on that
mover,
people mover, and for several years that was out of commission.
and going outside with your baggage, and this would fix that. So they really see that global terminal is key. The question is, can we get that done cost effectively?
All right, Joe Sweeterman, Mark Denzler, thank you for being here. We appreciate it. And up next, remembering legendary Chicago sculptor Richard Hunt. Artist Richard Hunt died on Saturday at age 88. Born in the Woodlawn neighborhood in 1935, he made monumental sculptures in his studio in Chicago and exported them around the world. Chicago Tonight last spoke with Richard Hunt at his studio in June 2021. That's where producer Mark Vitale caught up with him before the unveiling of a monument in Bronzeville. Here's another look.
50 years ago, this one-time electrical substation near DePaul was converted into a sculptor's laboratory. Richard Hunt has been grinding, welding, and creating here since 1971.
When I got this place in the beginning, they had taken out all of the equipment except the crane, which of course I'm glad they didn't take it out. So here you have this big high ceiling, open space, to develop things in and move them around with the crane and get them out the back door.
His process is intuitive.
The way things work, I'll start, putting some things together that I have an idea about that'll suggest something.
Some of his 21st century works are currently on the terrace of the modern wing of the Art Institute. Richard Hunt graduated from the School of the Art Institute in 1957 with a degree in art education. But
one year, as I was working on my income tax, I said, I made more money selling sculpture than I did from my teaching job. And so I decided I'd quit teaching and just be a sculptor.
He has called his creations a dialogue between himself, the technique, and the material.
It's dynamic and it's three-dimensional. I mean, that is to say, you're going to have a painting of something on the wall. There's something that you look at that doesn't change. But if you have a sculpture somewhere, you look at it from here, you look at it from there, or you look at it from another side, and it reveals itself in different ways.
He works with steel, bronze, copper, brass, and all kinds of scrap. Early in his career, he focused on found materials. In the 1960s, Studs Terkel asked him about it.
Mr. Hunt, as we're looking at your various works, these two statues, these two works of sculpture in front of us, what's the material? How did this come to be? What is the steel?
Yes, well, the raw material for these are automobile bumpers.
Richard Hunt's sculptures can be seen all over the city, from the Woodson Regional Library to Midway Airport to the Loop. His newest work in Chicago is Light of Truth, a monument in bronze to Ida B. Wells, the crusading journalist. A local author who is Ida B. Wells' great-granddaughter spent 13 years to bring to life this unconventional civic memorial.
We made a decision before we even contacted Richard that we wanted to have something that would not be in her likeness. We wanted it to be a monument versus a statue because Ida's life and her work was so multidimensional, so multi-layered that we felt trying to capture one pose would not necessarily capture all of who she was. The Ida B. Wells homes were right here on this land from 1941 to 2002. A tribute needed to be given to Ida on the land where the homes once stood, which is also really close to the house that she physically lived in. And this is Bronzeville. This neighborhood has a strong, rich history.
I'm reminded of the past and then looking toward the future of this community.
In the studio he's run for half a century, 85-year-old Richard Hunt is back to the grind.
It's interesting how the cityscape has changed, and of course I'm happy that I've had an opportunity to put a piece here and a piece there. It's been an important thing for me on many levels.
For Chicago Tonight, this is Mark Vitale.
Again, artist Richard Hunt died this past weekend at age 88. His monument to Ida B. Wells is called Light of Truth and stands at 37th and Langley Boulevard in Bronzeville. And his recent sculpture, Bookbird, will be on the campus of the Obama Presidential Center. There are more photos and remembrances of Richard Hunt on our website. And that's our show for this Monday night. Don't forget to stay connected with us by signing up for our daily briefing. And you can get Chicago Tonight streamed on Facebook, YouTube, and our website, WTTW.com/news. You can also get the show via podcast and the PBS video app. And join us tomorrow night at 5:30 and a special time, 11 p.m. And on that show, we have former Alderman Ed Burke's fate. He's now in the hands of a jury. We have Spotlight Politics to break down the latest. And from Lollipop Forest to Root Beer Oceans, the adventures of Patty O'Cinnamon, better known as the Cinnamon Bear. And now for all of us here at Chicago Tonight, I'm Paris Schutz. Thank you for watching. Stay healthy and safe, and have a great night.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a Chicago personal injury and wrongful death firm that is proud to recognize its 20 attorneys who have been named in the 2024 edition of the Best Lawyers in America.